My name is Kenji Ando. Now, I'm just a useless old man who can barely drag his own leg. But once, in the back alleys of Kabukicho, there wasn't a soul who didn't know my name. Or rather, they didn't fear me. They feared who I stood beside. I was Raju's watchdog. Every time it rains, I remember that smell. A distinct mix of exotic spices and rusting iron. It was 1975, the 50th year of Showa. The heat of the economic miracle hadn't cooled yet, but the shadow of the oil shock covered the city. Money was everything. If you didn't have money, you weren't human. And from the bottom of the Tokyo gutters, a monster crawled up. His name was Raju. Nobody knew his real name. He claimed his mother was Japanese and his father Indian, but who knows if that was true. One thing was certain. On this island nation, he was a foreign object. Burnt brown skin, chiseled features, and above all, those eyes. Eyes like obsidian, sucking in all the light. He had no family registry. His visa had expired. Legally, he didn't exist in Japan. That's exactly why he was obsessed with existing more than anyone else. His proof of life was violence and money. I first met him in a filthy mahjong parlor under the Shinjuku railway overpass. I was a low-level punk in a weak gang, running out of ways to earn. I was about to become the guy being chased by debt collectors. Then I heard the rumor. There's a moneylender with no nationality, no screening, no collateral, but if you don't pay, you see hell. In the back of the shop, thick with cigarette smoke, he sat there. He wore a cheap suit, but the pressure radiating from him was completely different from the Yakuza bosses I knew. "Sit down, Kenji." He knew my name. His Japanese was fluent, but it had a strange, sticky intonation. "You want money, right? How much?" On the table, instead of stacks of cash, there was a cup of tea. I remember the scent of cardamom. When I told him the amount with a trembling voice, he tossed the cash without even smiling. "I won't give you sweet talk like 10% every 10 days. It's 30%, but I lend faster than anyone. In exchange..." He put down the cup and shot me through with those black eyes. "If you are even 1 second late, I won't just take a finger. I will scrape away the proof that you lived. Do you understand?" I knew it instinctively then. This guy isn't Yakuza. He is a starving beast. That was the beginning of our blood-soaked 20 years together. Raju's methods were thorough. At the time, Japan's loan shark industry was still dominated by the pastoral violence of traditional Yakuza. Drag them to the office and yell, or hang up a signboard. But Raju was different. He systematized fear. He didn't just target the dregs of society, small business owners, civil servants, housewives. He dragged people who believed they lived in the proper world into the bottomless swamp. I remember one rainy night clearly. A man named Sato, who ran a small factory in Itabashi. He looked like a serious middle-aged man, but gambling had driven him mad, and he borrowed from Raju. The night the payment stalled, Raju and I went to the factory. In front of a press machine smelling of oil, Sato was on his knees. "Please wait a little longer. Money is coming in next month." A normal Yakuza would punch him once and extend the deadline, or trash the office and leave. But Raju was different. He quietly looked at the factory machinery, then pointed to a shelf where a photo of Sato's wife and daughter stood. "Sato-san, I have seen the slums of India. There, life is cheaper than a pebble on the road." Raju took something out of his pocket. Not a knife, a small notebook and a lighter. "You are Japanese. You are blessed. You have laws to protect you and the police. But I have nothing. I am not supposed to be in this country. So even if I kill you here, turn you into mince with this press machine, and scatter you in Tokyo Bay, No one can catch me, because I do not exist. The logic was insane, but overwhelmingly correct. The strength of a man with nothing to lose. Raju used that as a weapon. Sato trembled and pissed himself. Raju lit the lighter next to Sato's face. If you don't have money, make it. You still have 2 healthy kidneys, corneas, and you have a cute daughter, don't you? His tone was flat. He wasn't threatening. He was simply calculating assets. That coldness completely destroyed Sato's mind. Sato screamed and handed over the deed to the factory. Raju took the deed and said to me as we left, "Kenji, the Japanese are drunk on peace. They don't know the true price of violence. We will teach them. This is capitalism." For Raju, Japan might have been a giant exploitation ground, a target for revenge, discrimination for being mixed, the loneliness of being treated as a stranger in both India and Japan. He often said, "Money is my passport. If I have money, I can wash away the color of my skin and the dirt in my blood." That's why he could be crueler than anyone. He must have thrown away emotions like sympathy on the boat to Japan. Towards the end of the 1970s, Raju's organization, we didn't have a grand name like Raju Group, but the streets called us the Pack of Black Tigers, expanded rapidly. He wasn't satisfied with just being a loan shark. He grasped the weaknesses of debtors and began using them as pawns. He used bank clerks drowning in debt to leak customer info and debt-ridden cops to cover up investigations. He started acting like a broker, rounding up illegal foreign workers to take on dirty jobs. In the underworld of Shinjuku, a creepy force, stateless, lawless, and unlike the Yakuza, began to take root. But when the light gets stronger, the shadows get darker. Raju's rapid rise naturally touched the nerve of the professionals who had run this city for a long time. Summer, Showa, 54, 1979. The war began. The opponent was the Otomo-gumi, a militant faction of the Sanokai, one of the largest in Kanto. The trigger was trivial. Raju lent money to a hostess bar mama in Otomo's territory and took over the shop. "We're gonna settle this." I still dream about the moment the Otomo-gumi's underboss stormed into our office, a filthy room in a multi-tenant building, holding a dosu, short sword. That day, Raju was eating curry, scooping curry directly with his hand from a stainless steel plate to his mouth. The Yakuza mocked that wild gesture. "Hey, you curry-stinking bastard! Do you know whose territory this is?" The underboss yelled and kicked the desk. The curry plate fell to the floor, spreading a yellow stain. I tried to reach for the gun at my waist, but Raju stopped me with his eyes. He slowly stood up and wiped his dirty hands with a napkin. Territory? Turf? How trivial. Raju looked around at the tattooed men, with eyes like he was looking at lost children. "You guys eat off your honor. I buy life with money. If you don't understand the difference, you will die here." Raju snapped his fingers, and from the back of the room, men who had been lurking like shadows appeared. Filipinos, Iranians, and a washed-up ex-self-defense force soldier. Mercenaries of unknown nationality that Raju had tamed with money. They didn't hold pistols. They held iron pipes and machetes. What started in that narrow office wasn't a brawl. It was a one-sided slaughter. Raju didn't lift a hand. He just looked sadly at the curry on the floor, then whispered in the ear of the beaten underboss. "Tell your boss, from now on, when you come to borrow money from me, get on your knees before you enter." In the sea of blood, Raju was laughing. But that smile wasn't the joy of victory. It was an empty distortion, like a broken doll. That was the first time I felt fear. How high did this guy intend to climb? And what did he intend to see at the end? The era was moving into the 80s, heading towards the bubble economy, a time when all of Japan went crazy for money, land prices skyrocketed, and desires ran wild. It was the perfect stage for a monster like Raju to shine the brightest and fall the deepest. Showa, the era that fired its last, most dazzling and ugliest firework. That was the 80s. Our hustle changed. Collecting interest of a few 10,000 yen in back alleys was no longer something Raju's pride allowed. Kenji, money has a smell. One night, in the VIP room of a high-end club in Akasaka, Raju swirled amber brandy and said, "Poor people's money smells of sweat and cheap oil. But the money sleeping in bank vaults is odorless. From now on, we are going to hunt that odorless money." The season of jiage, land sharking, had arrived. Tokyo's land prices began to rise insanely. Old row houses and wooden apartments were torn down one after another, transforming into glass buildings. But in the shadow of that change, there were always cleaners like us. Major real estate companies and banks didn't dirty their own hands. The dirty work of evicting residents and snatching deeds was thrown entirely to outlaws. Raju rode that wave perfectly. We put up a sign that said, "Toyo Development Consultants." In reality, we were a professional group of violence and intimidation. Our target was an old shopping street clinging to a prime location in Minato Ward. There was a plan to build a skyscraper there, and a few shops refusing to leave were in the way. Raju's methods were insidious and artistic. It started with quiet harassment, silent phone calls all night, dead animals in mailboxes, playing tapes of Buddhist sutras at max volume in front of their houses. Normal people would give up and leave just with this. But the owner of the old Japanese sweet shop at the very back, a stubborn old man named Yamashita, wouldn't move. "This is land from my ancestors. I won't sell it to foreign thugs." Yamashita swung a bamboo broom and chased us away. Hearing the report, Raju didn't get angry. He narrowed his eyes happily. Ancestors. Japanese people love that word. But Kenji, land belongs to no one. The place where the strong draw a line, that is territory. For Raju, the obsession with land was abnormal. A man with no country. A man who couldn't put down roots anywhere. That's why I think he starved to dominate the soil beneath Tokyo's concrete. A few days later, we moved to force. We rammed a large dump truck right up to the sweet shop's entrance and blasted the engine roar and exhaust fumes for 24 hours straight. The house shook constantly, turning black with soot. Still, Yamashita didn't come out. Running out of patience, I tried to break into the shop with the young guys, but Raju stopped it. "Don't be barbaric. We are businessmen." Raju brushed the dust off his high-end Italian suit, took a single briefcase, and entered Yamashita's shop alone. I didn't know what happened. I heard no yelling, no screams. But 30 minutes later, when Raju came out, Yamashita was standing behind him with a face like his soul had been extracted. Yamashita held the deed and his registered seal with trembling hands. I heard later that Raju didn't use violence. He simply listed the weaknesses of the bank branch manager where Yamashita's son worked and the chairman of the private school his grandson attended. The more you persist with your pride, the more your beloved family's place in this society will vanish. Raju reportedly explained it quietly. Rather than physical violence, social erasure. It was the cruelest vital strike, one that only Raju, who had been placed outside of society as an immigrant, could know. The land obtained this way was resold from right to left, generating hundreds of millions of yen in profit overnight. We forgot the weight of cash. Bundles of bills weren't things to count anymore. They were things to stack like building blocks with the bands still on. Our office moved from the multi-tenant building in Shinjuku to a glass-walled office in Aoyama. Politicians, secretaries, and loan officers from major banks began to swarm around Raju. They knew Raju's background, but pretended not to see. As long as he brought money, skin color and criminal records didn't matter. That was the giant complicity called the bubble. Look, Kenji. One night, on the roof of a building under construction, Raju pointed at the Tokyo nightscape below. Glimmering neon, flowing car headlights. Every one of those lights is someone's debt. This city is seeing an illusion now. We are the ones showing them that illusion. Raju's profile in the wind looked like an emperor, and at the same time, like a lost child standing on a cliff edge. In India, I saw the bottom of the caste system. In Japan, I saw the bottom called Yakuza. But the dirtiest place is here. Raju took a business card given to him by a bank elite from his chest pocket and let it fly into the wind. They think of me only as a tool. Let the half-breed stray dog do the dirty work. But in the end, the dog will be the one laughing. It was around this time. Raju began to step into an even more dangerous territory, the world of politics and slush funds. He was no longer just a land shark. Stock manipulation, corporate raids, and backroom dealing for politicians' party tickets. Raju's organization went beyond the framework of a crime syndicate, beginning to dominate Tokyo's underground waterways as the economic mafia Indra Group. But I was anxious. The more money increased, the more the human temperature vanished from Raju's eyes. The wild heat he had when eating curry under the Shinjuku guardrails was gone. There was only ice-cold calculation and a bottomless void. And the gears of fate began to go mad with the Plaza Accord of 1985, the strong yen recession, followed by the real madness of the bubble. While all of Japan danced crazily, Raju was about to execute a certain plan. It was a reckless, magnificent gamble that would turn Japanese Yakuza society and even the nation itself into his enemy. Kenji, I found what I want, Raju said. Not money, not land, honor. I will become a complete public figure in this country, one who no one points a finger at. I didn't know back then that those words were the beginning of the end, that beneath our feet, invisible cracks were spreading with a snapping sound. There is nothing money can't buy. Raju believed that, and it certainly looked that way. 1986. Tokyo was insane. Salarymen waving 10,000 yen bills to stop taxis, women in bodycon dresses being sucked into Juliana's Tokyo. The assets of our Indra Group had ballooned to billions of yen just on the visible books. But the grimness never left Raju's face. What he wanted wasn't a tower of cash. It was respect. One night, Raju took me to a members-only salon in Chiyoda Ward. It was the kind of place that served as the center of power in Japan, where chairmen of Zaibatsu corporations and retired politicians gathered. Raju was moving forward with a plan to become the owner of a massive hotel planned for a prime location in Tokyo. If successful, he would be recognized as a notable figure, not just a shady Indian moneylender. But the door did not open. The salon manager didn't even take Raju's card, saying with a cold smile, "Mr. Raju, this club prioritizes the pedigree and trust of our members above all. For someone with money of unknown origins like yourself, it is not suitable." It was a humiliation. Back in the car, Raju punched the dashboard in silence. Once, twice, 3 times, until blood seeped from his knuckles. "Kenji, did you see? Those eyes." Raju's voice was trembling. "They don't see me. They see my skin color, my broken Japanese, and the smell of the gutter spreading behind me. No matter how much Armani I wear, no matter how much tax I pay, I am forever a filthy foreign object to them. That night, Raju drank heavily, which was rare. He went to a jazz bar in Roppongi called Blue Moon. There, he met fate, or perhaps the goddess of ruin. Her name was Naomi. She was singing My Funny Valentine in the center of the stage, leaning against the piano. Unlike the flashy hostesses, she was a woman with shadows, like delicate glasswork. Her singing voice held the same deep loneliness that Raju carried. Raju stared at her, frozen, glass in hand. I had never seen him with eyes like that. Not the eyes of a beast stalking prey. They were the pleading eyes of a lost child finding its mother. Naomi was the daughter of a family with fallen noble blood, but she had sunk into the night world due to her father's debts. It's ironic. It was loan sharks like us who drove her there. But Raju hid his true identity from her. He lied and said he was a traitor. They fell for each other fast. To Naomi, Raju might have looked like a foreign prince taking her away from the suffocating Japanese society. And to Raju, Naomi was the first beautiful thing that wasn't dirty he had obtained in this country. Kenji, I'm thinking of retiring. One day, Raju muttered. We were sitting on the steel frame of a building under construction. Once the hotel deal is done, I'll leave the organization to you. I'm going overseas with Naomi. Not India, maybe Europe, somewhere nobody knows me. I was speechless. That greedy Raju was trying to pull his fangs. Are you serious, boss? Yeah, I'm tired, Kenji. I've stolen enough, haven't I? But the underworld isn't sweet. A human who has stepped into that swamp is never allowed to wash his feet and leave in clean clothes, especially by the people who were bitter about our rapid growth. A man named Samashima, an executive of the Go-Ryokai, a massive organization controlling the Kanto region, contacted us. Samashima was a typical militant Yakuza. Raju-chan, I heard you're building a huge hotel. Samashima barged into Raju's office with his shoes on, sat on the sofa, and laughed vulgarly. Let us have a bite. Construction rights, security, suppliers, use all the companies under our influence, and pay half the profits as tribute. It wasn't a request, it was extortion. The old Raju would have negotiated calmly, or grabbed the opponent's weakness and counterattacked. But Raju, who had known peace through his life with Naomi, was impatient. His haste to escape this world distorted his judgment. I refuse, Raju said shortly. This is my business. It's not a meal ticket for you, Yakuza. Samashima's eyes narrowed like a reptile. A foreigner dares to talk back to a Japanese Yakuza? You're fine with this place becoming your grave? Get out. Never come back. Negotiations broke down. That was the signal for the rain of blood. The attacks were insidious and thorough. First, Molotov cocktails were thrown into our office. Next, Raju's subordinates were abducted on the street, encased in concrete, and found in Tokyo Bay. Then, the winter of Showa 63, 1988. It was Christmas Eve. Raju had promised to have dinner with Naomi. I was waiting in the car a little distance away as a bodyguard. Flashy illuminations, happy lovers. The moment Raju, holding a bouquet, tried to enter the restaurant where Naomi was waiting, a black sedan jumped onto the sidewalk. The window opened, and a black muzzle peeked out. "Boss, get down!" I screamed, opening the car door and jumping out. But it was too late. Dry gunshots rang out. Pop, pop, pop. Raju turned his body reflexively, survival instincts cultivated in his stray dog days. But Naomi, who had come out of the shop to greet him, was different. A red flower bloomed on her white coat. One shot, two shots. She crumpled like a doll. "Naomi!" Raju's scream tore through the Christmas bustle. The sedan screeched its tires and fled. I fired back and chased, but lost them. On the asphalt, Raju was holding Naomi. Blood-soaked hands, scattered flowers. Naomi died instantly. Police sirens could be heard in the distance. It started to snow. White snow falling on red blood. The scene was cruelly beautiful. Raju didn't cry. He just stared into the void while holding Naomi's corpse. The human light completely vanished from his eyes. "Retire," Raju muttered. His voice rumbled from the bottom of hell. "That's right. I was wrong, Kenji. I tried to become human, but they treated me like a beast." Raju kissed Naomi's cold cheek and stood up slowly. His face was expressionless, like a no mask, but the murderous intent radiating from his whole body froze the surrounding air. "Fine. I'll give them what they want. I will become a devil. I will wash this Tokyo with their blood. War, business, money, honor. None of it mattered anymore. This was the beginning of an endless slaughter called revenge. That night, we stopped being human. There was no funeral for Naomi. Her family refused to claim the body. A daughter who died involved with Yakuza is the shame of the family, they said. In the end, just Raju and I buried her bones in a cemetery for the unconnected, overlooking the sea in the suburbs. Incense smoke drifted in the winter wind. Raju didn't even put his hands together in prayer before the gravestone. He just took a thick envelope from his pocket and set it on fire with his lighter. It was the construction deed for the hotel. "Kenji, I'm not going to the surface world anymore." The ashes danced in the wind. "I'm going to tear apart this society they created." From the next day, Tokyo's underworld turned into a scene of agonizing hell. The Tokyo scorched earth strategy that Raju declared fundamentally overturned the common sense of Japanese Yakuza. Usually, there is etiquette in Yakuza conflicts. Declare war, target executives, and finally, hand-clapping, reconciliation. But Raju had no organization to protect, no face to save, no signboard. All he had was billions in funds and madness. Raju used overseas connections to bring in a massive number of hitmen from the Philippines, Colombia, and China. They couldn't speak Japanese and didn't know the fear of Japanese Yakuza. They only saw the reward Raju offered: 5 million yen per Yakuza executive head. Kill them, I don't care how. Raju's order was simple. The first target was a high-end club in Roppongi, a funding source for the Go Ryokai. While the shop was open, a foreign squad wearing balaclavas stormed in. Not just pistols, grenades were thrown. Explosions, screams, shattering chandeliers. Customers, hostesses, it didn't matter. Indiscriminate destruction. The hitmen unhesitatingly shot the Go Ryokai executives hiding among the fleeing customers. The news reported it heavily as heinous crimes by third-country nationals. The National Police Agency was furious and went on high alert. But Raju didn't stop. Fear, Kenji. Carve fear into them. In a room in a hideout apartment, Raju was shouting instructions with a radio in hand. On the wall was a map detailed with the Go Ryokai organization chart, the executives' home addresses, mistresses' apartments, and even the schools their children attended. Raju wasn't sleeping anymore. Without eating, washing down methamphetamines with water, his eyes were bloodshot, and his skin had turned wax white. He looked less like a human and more like a computer executing a program called Revenge. The Go Ryokai also counterattacked. They raided offices and related companies in our turf. But those places were already empty shells. Raju had liquidated all our assets and gone underground. Guys with things to protect are weak. Raju sneered. They try to protect their offices, protect their crests. That's why they move slow. We are ghosts. You can't kill a ghost. And then, that night came. We caught info that the Go Ryokai's number 2, Samashima, the man who ordered Naomi's murder, was hiding in a villa in Hakone with his mistress. It was New Year's Eve. The world was celebrating the arrival of the new year, but due to Emperor Showa's worsening condition, there was a strange silence, a mood of self-restraint. We climbed the mountain roads of Hakone in a modified 4-wheel drive. In the passenger seat, Raju had an assault rifle, AK-47, on his lap, a military rifle in Japan. It was insanity. "Kenji, did you get scared?" Raju asked in a low voice. "No way. But, after this is over, what happens to us?" "It doesn't end. It doesn't end until we die." The villa was guarded like a fortress, but Raju charged from the front, smashing the gate with the car, driving into the garden. Gunfire exploded. I pulled the trigger desperately. The smell of gunpowder, the sound of falling casings. The guards fell one after another. Raju's shooting was incomparably precise. It wasn't wild firing out of anger. It was cold shooting, aiming surely for vitals. Cornered in the bedroom at the back of the building, Samashima was trembling in a yukata. Wait! Let's talk! I'll pay money! I'll apologize!" Samashima rubbed his forehead on the floor, begging for his life. The dignity with which he once cursed us as foreign scum was gone. Raju didn't lower his gun. Naomi didn't even have time to beg for her life. "I was wrong. I didn't order it. The top did." Raju cut off Samashima's words and took a photo from his pocket. A photo of a smiling Naomi. He thrust it in front of Samashima's eyes. "Look closely. This is the face of the angel you are taking to hell." Da-da-da-da. 3 dry sounds. Samashima's face was blown away. Without changing his expression, Raju picked up the blood-soaked photo and carefully put it back in his chest pocket. On the way back, the eastern sky began to turn white. Breaking news flowed from the car radio. His Majesty the Emperor has passed away. January 7th, Showa 64. The moment Showa ended, a long, long era was over. And that was also the beginning of an era of purification, where the Japanese police and state power would stake their honor to thoroughly eliminate impurities like us. "The era is changing, Kenji," Raju muttered, watching the sunrise. His profile was filled not with the accomplishment of revenge, but with nowhere-to-go loss. "The darkness called Showa has died. From now on, there will be no place for monsters like us to hide." The National Police Agency designated Raju as a broad area important designated suspect. The Go Ryokai also put a bounty on our heads with all their might. The state and the Yakuza, all of Japan, became our enemy. There was no escape, but Raju was laughing. "Interesting. The whole world wants to kill me. That is the very proof that I lived in this country." The countdown to the collapse of the Raju group began. From here on, Raju was a runaway locomotive stepping on the accelerator toward ruin. Betrayal, encirclement, and the final gamble. We would enact our final escape drama inside the giant prison called Tokyo. The Heisei era seemed to begin with cold rain. The fever of Showa vanished like a lie, and the city was overflowing with the word purification. The police launched a summit operation, thoroughly crushing not just the Go Ryokai, but us, the Indra group, who started the fire. It was no longer an era where money could buy the police. Our accounts were frozen. Real estate, stock certificates, luxury cars. The castle on the sand Raju had built vanished, as if washed away by waves. And as the money ran out, people left. Boss, I'm sorry. I have a family too. The aides who licked Raju's shoes yesterday disappeared like the tide receding. Some even snitched on our hideouts to the police to cut plea deals. There is nothing more fragile than loyalty bought with money. Raju should have known that better than anyone, but witnessing it actually happen whittled down his spirit. Kenji, why don't you run? Raju asked one rainy night in a room at a seedy motel. His body, which once wore Armani so well, was thin, his eyes sunken, looking like a ghost. On the table were cheap convenience store bentos and just a few handguns. Who knows? I have nowhere to go either. I lied. I could have run if I wanted to, but letting this broken man die like a dog in a ditch alone would leave a bad taste in my mouth. Besides, I too had been burned too much by the intense light called Raju. My body couldn't return to normal society. The betrayal became definitive with the matter of Kaneda, the man who kept the safe. Kaneda was the only man Raju trusted with his escape funds. Hidden assets worth hundreds of millions in diamonds and cash. But Kaneda didn't show up at the meeting place. Instead, hitmen from the Go-Ryokai appeared, an abandoned factory in northern Kanto. When we realized it was a trap, bullets flew from all four sides. "You betrayed me! Kaneda!" Raju's roar echoed in the factory. It wasn't the anger of a businessman. It was the scream of a wounded beast stabbed in the back by someone he believed in. We fought back while crawling through muddy water. I was shot in the shoulder. Severe pain, like a hot iron being pressed against me. But Raju fought like a demon god. Discarding his empty assault rifle, he picked up a fallen iron pipe and crushed the skull of an attacking gang member. That figure was exactly the stray dog Raju who rampaged in the back alleys of Shinjuku when he first came to Tokyo. It's ironic. When he lost everything, he shone the most like himself. By the time we broke through the encirclement and fled in a stolen light truck, dawn had broken. We couldn't find Kaneda. The money and diamonds were all taken. All we had left were blood-soaked clothes, a few coins, and one handgun with a few bullets. From billionaire to penniless. It wasn't just a roller coaster. It was a direct elevator from heaven to hell. It's laughable, Kenji. In the passenger seat, Raju laughed with a dry voice. Face covered in blood and mud. One front tooth broken. 20 years in Japan, killing, deceiving, stealing everything, and in the end, I'm back to square one. Outside the window, a peaceful rural landscape spread out. A peaceful morning. Children with backpacks were walking. That scene rejected us. This is not our world. "Where are we going, boss?" I asked, gripping the steering wheel. We had no destination. If we went back to Tokyo, police and Yakuza were waiting. We couldn't leave the country from the airport. Raju was silent for a while, but eventually he took a tattered photo from his pocket. Naomi's photo. "I want to see the sea," Raju said. "I promised Naomi that someday the two of us would live in a quiet seaside town with nobody else." Those were the words of a man looking for a place to die. I didn't say anything and stepped on the gas, heading east, to the end of Chiba, to a desolate port town facing the Pacific. During this escape, Raju often talked about the past. The hunger in the Indian slums, the darkness of the ship's hold coming to Japan, the taste of the first ramen he ate. "Kenji, I just wanted to be treated like a normal human being." Raju's voice was innocent and weak, like a child's. Walking into a restaurant, looking at the menu, ordering what I like, nobody staring at me, the waiter placing water with a smile, Why is just that so difficult for me? I couldn't answer. The unconscious wall this country has, trying to exclude foreign things. Raju tried to break that wall with money and violence, and in the end, he was crushed by its thickness. A few days later, we holed up in an abandoned house in a fishing port in Chiba. The smell of the tide and rotting fish. Here, the pursuers wouldn't come for a while. But the end was approaching. Raju's condition was worsening. Years of drug abuse, the stress of life on the run, and the wounds from the battle were starting to fester. While nursing Raju as he burned with fever, I had made my resolve. We probably wouldn't get out of here alive. Watching the end of the monster called Raju was my final job. One night, Raju suddenly woke up and grabbed my hand. His hand was burning hot. "Kenji, call the police." I doubted my ears. "What are you saying? If you're caught, it's the death penalty." "It's fine," Raju said, staring at the stain on the ceiling. "I refuse to be killed by Yakuza. Rather than becoming their trophy, I will end this within the laws, rules of this country. That is the last claw mark I can leave on this land. If it goes to trial, Raju intends to spill everything. The politicians he lent money to, the police bureaucrats he favored, the bankers who funneled slush funds. The truth told by Raju's mouth would expose the rotten guts of the bubble era to the light of day. It was Raju's way, his final revenge on Japanese society. I understand. I headed to the public phone with trembling hands. My finger felt heavy dialing. 110. From the other side of the receiver, an inorganic female voice was heard. "Yes, this is the police. Is it an incident or an accident?" I took a deep breath and announced, "Raju, the wanted man, is here." The sound of sirens sounded like a tsunami rushing in from afar. What started as a faint noise turned into a roar pressing against my eardrums within minutes. Red lights slashed through the darkness of the fishing port, dancing like eerie red shadows on the walls of the abandoned house. "They're here!" Raju didn't even look out the window. He just sat cross-legged on the rotting tatami mats, inhaling deeply on his last cigarette. From outside, a voice on a megaphone echoed, "To those inside! The building is completely surrounded. Stop useless resistance and come out." Riot police. Hundreds of officers holding duralumin shields and news helicopters circling overhead. The 110 call we made wasn't just a report. It was an invitation to state power. "Kenji, how do I look?" Raju asked. "Terrible. We're both covered in mud." But a king must act like a king." Raju stood up and brushed the dust off his tattered Italian double-breasted suit. His tie was stained with blood and oil. Shirt buttons were missing, his cheeks were hollow, and his beard was overgrown. But it was strange. That figure looked more noble than any Raju I had ever seen. He took a small comb from his pocket and slicked back his messy hair. In that moment, the light of the monster of Shinjuku returned to the eyes of the rat-like fugitive. "Kenji, I'm going out first," Raju said. "You come out after a little time. Insist you have nothing to do with me. Say, I was threatened and forced to drive." "Boss, why now?" "It's an order." Raju's voice rang out sharply. This was the last order I ever heard from him. I alone am enough. The protagonist of this country's news only needs to be me. Raju put his hand on the front door. The rusted iron door screamed, "Key!" I called out with a trembling voice. "Raju-san, meeting you kept me from being bored." Raju didn't look back. He just raised his right hand lightly with his back to me and threw the door open. In an instant, intense searchlights swallowed Raju. "He's out! Prepare to secure. Roll cameras, roars, the blast of helicopter blades, and the sound of countless camera shutters. Even though it was night, it was brighter than day. Raju didn't raise his hands. Keeping them in his pockets, he walked forward slowly, like a movie star walking the red carpet. I could see the police flinch and step back for a second, overwhelmed by his strange intensity. State power was intimidated by a single dying man with no weapons. But soon, the detectives jumped on him. "Secure him!" Raju was pinned to the ground, face pressed into muddy water. But Raju didn't resist. He just lifted his face toward the battery of cameras. I was watching that scene through a gap in the house. That photo. The moment that would later grace the front page of every newspaper, just before being shoved into the police car, held by detectives on both sides. Raju glared at the camera. Not regret, not fear. "Look, this is me. The foreign object you created, you feared, and you are trying to kill." Eyes filled with contempt and absolute pride saying just that. The flash of the strobe burned that demon-like expression onto film forever. When Raju disappeared inside the patrol car, the tension at the scene relaxed instantly. A sense of exhaustion, like after a festival. I collapsed to my knees. It was over. The story of the man who left the ugliest, most vivid scar on Japan's post-war criminal history ended here. I was taken into protective custody an hour later. As Raju ordered, I pretended to be a victim. The detectives suspected me, but due to insufficient evidence and Raju's own testimony, I got off with a suspended sentence. In the interrogation room, Raju took all the crimes upon himself. "He's just a driver. He knows nothing." I heard he repeated that. In the detention center, Raju was apparently quiet. In response to days of interrogation, he simply continued to expose the corruption of politicians and corporations. Because of his testimony, 2 big-shot Diet members resigned, and a bank president was arrested. It was exactly the revenge on society he had predicted. The public was in an uproar like a poked beehive. Foreign criminal sheikhs, Japanese politics. While the media bashed him as a devil, they were captivated by his charisma. But I knew Raju had no intention of leaving there alive. He was just waiting to burn all the fuel of his life and turn to ash. Behind the iron bars, Raju was doing his final job. The trial became less a place to judge his crimes and more a public execution ground where he squeezed out the pus of Japanese society. In court, Raju wore a gray sweatsuit instead of his flashy suits. But his back was straight, and standing at the witness stand, he looked like a teacher at a podium. "I only lent money. But who used that money? And for what purpose? Judge, may I read the list?" The prosecution tried to stop him in a panic, but Raju didn't stop. Backroom donations to the Minister of Construction, gambling debts of police chiefs, illegal loans by major banks. Every time he opened his mouth, the media in the gallery went wild, and the bureaucrats of Kasumigaseki turned pale. In exchange for his life, Raju was peeling off the mask of Japan's surface society. I went to visit him only once. Through the acrylic board, Raju looked peaceful, as if a demon had left him. "Kenji, how is the outside?" "Same as always. The bubble burst, and everyone is walking around with eyes like dead fish." "Is that so? With me gone, has the city become quiet?" "Yeah, it's lonely." Raju smiled just a little. "I dreamed of Naomi. She said she's waiting on the other side." "Kenji, don't pick up my bones. Throw them in the sea. I don't want to return to Japanese soil." That was the last time I heard his actual voice. January, Heisei 7th, 1995. The winter of that cursed year when the Great Hanshin earthquake struck. and the sarin gas attack shook Japan. Raju died in solitary confinement. The official announcement was heart failure. Situs, but there were too many mysteries surrounding that death. The day before he died, he was in perfect health. And it was right before he was scheduled to give even more significant testimony at the next trial. Poisoning, silencing, or did he take his own life? The truth is forever in the darkness. One thing is certain. With his death, many politicians and power players sighed in relief. The monster of Shinjuku closed his life all alone, watched over by no one. As per his will, his remains were not claimed. Before they were processed as an unconnected dead person, I secretly scattered them in the sea. That sea in Chiba, at the end of our escape. White powder dissolving into gray waves. Raju was finally free. No borders, no laws, no discrimination, just a part of the sea. And now, I am standing in the hustle and bustle of Kabukicho. More than 30 years have passed since then. The city has changed. The dirty back alleys have been sanitized, giant cinemas have been built, and foreign tourists walk around with cameras. Homeless kids gather at Toyoyoko, but they don't have the glaring murderous intent we once had. Modern Yakuza commit fraud with smartphones, and violence has changed its form to invisible violence. If Raju were alive, what would he say seeing this clean, somewhat empty Tokyo of the Reiwa era? Would he laugh and say, "It's become a boring city"? Or would he be relieved, saying, "It's finally peaceful"? It started to rain, the smell of wet asphalt. Suddenly, I feel like the nostalgic scent of spices is reviving in the back of my nose. I know it's a hallucination, but I can't help but look back, wondering if that brown-skinned man in a cheap suit with black eyes shining isn't walking from beyond that crowd. "Kenji, do you want money?" Wondering if he'll grin and say that. My life might have been a long dream where I got swept up in a storm called Raju. Criminal, murderer, enemy of society. The world calls him that, but to me, he was my only brother. A sad man who hated Japan more than anyone, yet wanted to be recognized as a human in this country more than anyone. My story ends here. I'm going now. My leg hurts, and it's cold tonight. If you ever smell curry on a rainy night, remember him. The story of a nameless tiger who ran through the darkness of Showa and vanished with the bubbles.